Okay.
Yeah, just don't forget to press record.
There we go. It is April 1st at 6:31 p.m. and I'm calling this GOL meeting to order. I'm going to go ahead and make sure everybody can hear and be heard. So, Councilor Griesmer?
Yes. Hi,
Excellent. Thank you.
present.
Councilor Ate?
Aye.
Hello. And Councilor Lord?
Yes, here, present.
Hello. All right, excellent. So, thank you all so much for your flexibility in meeting today. We are going to be talking through a couple different things today, and we're going to see how I'm trying to make sure we um, budget our time appropriately as we go through, and I'm trying to make sure that I have everything pulled up as well as I go. Okay, so let's start off. Oh, yeah, with public comment. As per the agenda, we do not have any members of the public here. And I know that I had emailed Michelle and Dr. Shabazz earlier to let them know about the meeting date, but it looks like they're not here, so it's okay. We've got a couple things on the agenda today. Mainly, it's the AHRA successor body charge and then committee vacancies. I'm tempted to swap the order of these two items because I think the committee vacancies will go quicker, and then we can kind of see where we get today on the AHRA successor body charge. I do want to preface this by saying that I am not expecting us to get through the successor body charge today. This is going to be something that I think will take us a couple meetings. We've got a lot of feedback to talk through, and I will give the background to that when we get to it. But if unless there's an objection from folks, I'd like to move to the committee vacancies and start with the finance committee. Does that sound okay? No objections? Okay, let me pull it up. And what we're going to talk about first is the selection guidance. We need to vote the selection guidance first, and then we will vote interview questions. But until we have voted the selection guidance, we cannot vote the interview questions, if I'm understanding the order correctly. So stand by. All right. This is selection guidance that we have used in the past for finance committee. I don't know why it's two fonts because I thought that this was the one I had used, and I would never allow such a thing to happen. But there we go. So what I'd like to do is just spend a moment reading through this. This was in the packet for our last meeting, so if you read it for that meeting, then it's and you have comments on it. But I'll give us because it wasn't. I will make sure that it's available in the packet for this meeting. But because it wasn't there initially, I want to give folks a moment to read through it. Selection guidance is part of our appointment process to multiple member bodies. And basically, this is what we are keeping in mind as we go through and are conducting interviews and looking to put together the two members, the two non-resident members of this committee. So I'll give you a minute to read. Can everyone read this okay? I can zoom in a little. And if you could just give me an indication with a hand when you're done and ready for discussion.
Can you scroll down?
This part we can't change. This is just the town council policy.
Right. Hmm. Hmm.
So are we ready to? Okay. Thank you. So this first part, just bearing in mind, this first part is, I believe, what's typically used for all multiple member bodies. So It is slightly less relevant exactly for Finance Committee. This is where we only have 2 members that we're appointing to sit to round out that full committee of counselors, right? So the part that's kind of key for finance are these 3 bullets here. And so we can absolutely talk about this, but our focus, in my mind, our focus is really about this section here, because this is what's specific to multiple member, to Finance Committee, excuse me. Counselor Ete.
Yes, I don't expect an extended conversation on this, but I was wondering what is meant by broadly representative of the town. That's number 3.
This one?
Yes.
I don't know. It's a good question. I think that this is saying that they would like the makeup of the full body to ideally include representation of the variety of folks that of the variety of identities folks hold who live in our town. That's my understanding of it based on the first part, right? Is like no one, and again, no one person has all of these. It's saying the body as a whole. So that's my read on it, is that our multiple member bodies should be broadly representative of the town itself in their makeup. Does that clarify? Counselor Lord?
Wondering, where do we get our demographics of the town from? The census every 10 years, or is there another, do you know?
I believe it is the census, yes, but we also, I don't know if we are looking back and cross-checking with the census when we get applications in to multiple member bodies. At least I haven't necessarily done that piece of it.
Oh, thank you. It just hit me like, hey, we know some things, but how do we? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And this is much of this information. I don't know about homeownership or rental status. I haven't looked at the community activity form in a while, but the form that folks fill out does ask for age, gender, race, does not ask for income, I don't think. Location of residence, things like that. It asks those questions. And then folks self-disclose if they choose to self-disclose other elements, but we don't ask specifically about, I don't believe. I can pull it up to check if someone wants to, or if someone else wants to look, but some of this is self-disclosure. Some of this is what's on the community activity form.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Does anyone have any proposed edits to this selection guidance? Really thinking through experience serving, I would say experience serving, just on doesn't make sense here, but on a baseline edit, I would say experience with or service related to past service related to public finance. Does that make sense? Sort of. Public finance. I don't know what audit committee is. That sounds like public finance to me. Can I just say public finance? I'm gonna go until someone tells me to stop. So, first one says public service related or past service related to public finance.
I probably am the one that mentioned audit because it is another way that people learn finance, and sometimes audit committees are separate from finance committees.
But when it says here, past service in public finance or audit committee, is it a specific audit committee that you were looking for, or was it broadly finance?
I want to step back a moment and just say, finding people with public finance, if we actually think about it, of the people we have brought on, I believe that Bernie may be the only one that had public finance.
Yeah.
So I would like to suggest past service related to finance, including public finance or something like that. So in other words, if you've been on the finance committee of a nonprofit, it does give you some level of experience that's relevant to budgets. It's relevant to audits. It's relevant to complying by certain rules and tax forms, that kind of thing.
So how's this? Past service related to finance, including public finance, auditing, or other relevant areas.
I think that covers a lot of territory. That's good.
I mean, because some of this is, we don't also want to limit to only what we know of too. So we want to
Right.
give folks that.
Right.
But I think that's a good point, Lynn. So then any issues with this first bullet? Okay. Training / expertise in economics, finance, fiscal policy, or comparable areas, or experience interest in multiple finance. I don't necessarily see how this is different than the first one. Other
Well,
than, I guess,
except for
training
the
or
economics,
expertise.
finance, fiscal policy are,
Yep.
those are different.
Should I take one out? Because this is stated in the first one.
Yeah, just end with areas.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to add something in here that's like interest. I think that this, for me, I would read this as someone who I would hope I'm thinking purely from my own experience, right? I would read this and be like, oh, I definitely couldn't apply for this, where I think I could learn and become a valuable member of the finance committee, right? So is there a way that we can add in another bullet here that's saying, demonstrated interest in financial future of Amherst or something like other committee engagement or other, basically showing that they want to do this kind of work that the finance committee does.
I think demonstrated interest. I'm sorry, I need to raise my hand.
No, go ahead. It's fine.
Demonstrated interest in
Uh,
I like that.
Financials. I don't know if that's right. Councilor
And-
Ate, I'm looking to you to tell me why I
Government
can't say
operations
this.
and-
I was going to say
Mm.
financial planning, but financials isn't.
It feels
Yeah.
really broad.
Yeah. Financial planning sounds good.
I think
too.
financial planning is good, yeah. Can I add finance and or budgeting? Because I think sometimes
Yes.
people just call it something different. And
Yeah.
that would, yeah. Okay, so consistently available for meetings, particularly during budgeting season, which is normally May and June. That would be our last one. Councilor Ate?
Availability. So qualifications might include consistently available for me.
Yeah, that does make sense. Thank you. All right. Availability to attend meetings, particularly during budgeting season, which is normally May and June. Okay. So right now we've got 4 qualifications might include, and I think I want to add in a sentence, I think we did this for charter review about like no one person is expected to have all of these things. But past service related to finance, including public finance, auditing, or other relevant areas, training or expertise in economics, finance, and or budgeting, fiscal policy, or comparable areas, demonstrated interest in municipal government operations and financial planning, and availability to attend meetings, particularly during budgeting season, which is normally May and June.
I think this does it.
Does that sound okay?
Mhm.
Might
But you were
include
going to add something about,
not
Yeah.
limited to. I just wanted to add a clause here. Ideally, resident members would represent a mix of experiences, skills, and perspectives, including knowledge of and beyond Amherst. Knowledge or experiences. No, it's already said experiences, sorry. All right, fine. Okay, sound good?
yep.
I'm going to add in April 1, 2025. Do I have a motion to adopt this selection guidance for non-voting members of the Finance Committee dated April 1st, 2025?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and, thank you. I gotta write this down, or I forget. On the reports that I don't remember to send in. App selection, guidance, moved. Second. Okay. Counselor Griesmer.
Nothing. Did I raise my hand?
No, I'm calling
Vote.
the vote.
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Counselor Ette,
Yes.
Counselor Lord,
Aye.
and I am an I as well. All right, let me save this so that I don't forget. This passes. Thank you all very much. Adopted. That's so funny. The last time we adopted this was April 18th, 2024. All right. Okay. Let's go now to the, let's see, we're doing okay on timing. Let's go now to the Charter Review Committee. Where did it go? Sorry, I have too many things open on my computer. It's actually alarming. Give me one moment, please. Anybody have any small talk? I hate when I don't have stuff up and I am awkwardly just going around here. No small talk for me. All right, well, take a minute while I go look here. Must be thrilling for anybody who watches it after the fact. Alrighty, here we go. So we're gonna go to the Charter Review Committee guidance, and then based on timing, we will look at interview questions. And here's this. So this was what GOL adopted March 21st, 2024. And we came up with this list based on a lot of discussion. I know two of you were part of that conversation last year. So let's look at this and see where we go from here. I'm going to give you a minute to read. Indicate to me when you are done. How are we doing? Ready? Okay. All right. So we had a quick preamble here. The guidance below represents some of the criteria GOL will consider in selecting potential candidates. It is not an exhaustive list, and no one candidate is expected to possess all or even many of these criteria. A robust charter review committee will include a mix of the following. Any issues with this before we go into the, okay. Demographic diversity, including racial, economic, gender, and generational diversity. Good there. Variety of life experiences, skills, ages, and occupations. I don't know why ages isn't up here with a demographic. Age and generational, kind of the similar. Can I do age/generational? Sorry, now I'm getting picky, but is that okay?
Yeah.
Counselor Ette, you unmuted and I was waiting for you to tell me what you thought.
I thought better.
Right. You like this better? Or the other way better?
I like this. I was thinking about generational diversity and what that meant. But I think there is a distinction between age and generational diversity. So
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of do a slash. Okay. Variety of life experiences, skills, and occupations. Prior community engagement outside of government, town government. Prior engagement with the charter development process. Prior experience in community engagement / outreach. Prior experience with or knowledge of data collection methodology. Prior service on a town board / committee or as an elected official. I think we can just take that part out. Initially, I was like, this should say town of Amherst, but then I feel like we should just take out this last part. Okay, no one has shot me down yet. Okay. Representation across all town districts. Should we say all or should we just say representation across? Because I struggle with this. Like if we have this is why we have lots of criteria, but we don't want to just pick somebody solely because they're from a district that hasn't had one individual on it yet when they have other great criteria. Councillor Lord?
I don't know if that word mix gives us flexibility, where I like that it says will include a mix of the following. So I don't
Yeah,
know if
you're
that,
right.
right? Okay.
Yeah, no, you're right. It does give us that flexibility. You're right. So that's Councillor Ate?
I was wondering what the mix of representation across town districts is right now. Is it even a mix? Because I seem to recall that it isn't. And I think I prefer removing the all just because that is added flexibility on top of the mix.
I agree. Thank you. I don't have the information directly in front of me in this moment, but I believe that it does skew a bit, but it's a 9-person committee, so I think that there is a variety, just not, I don't think it's perfect. Okay. Any further edits to this? Otherwise, I'm happy to hear a motion to adopt the Charter Review Committee selection guidance dated April 1st, 2025.
So moved.
I'm good.
Lord second.
Thank you. I'm writing it down. Charter selection. I'm gonna call the vote. Councillor Lord.
Aye.
Councillor Ate.
Aye.
I am an aye. Councillor Griesmer.
Aye.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay.
Can I, trying to,
Ease.
there we
Go
go.
ahead.
One of the interesting things that we face with this is do you remember if we plotted out where people were from?
It was included on the CAFs. We did have that discussion.
Yeah, and then my question is, because we're only picking one person this time,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not like, so are we like filling a hole because a person lives in a certain district or brought a certain characteristic?
I think that there's a bit of that, yes, and we can look back on if folks want to look back and watch the interviews, or read the CAFs from last year. I believe I can share those. I'll confirm that, but the no committee is going to be perfect, so I don't know if it's necessarily about replacing the characteristics that the one person who left had, as much as it's looking at the committee and seeing where that need is. I would encourage everyone to watch at least one Charter Review Committee meeting and kind of observe that. I will reach out to the chair to see if they have any thoughts as well. as we kind of go through here. So we're not, I guess, Lynn, to answer your questions, no, we're not looking at who left. We're looking at who's there and what is needed. If that makes sense. What I haven't looked at is the calendar, so I apologize, I don't have an updated calendar for you, but the agenda posting went live, it went live later than I thought. Not the agenda posting, the vacancy notice, sorry. Went live a bit later than I thought. Let me tell you exactly when, because I will have a remade calendar to run by everybody. And I think Hala, I think we weren't able to confirm it with you too. So I'm going to send that. I'll ask for availability from folks, which is not an open meeting law violation, but I will ask for availability from folks for interview dates and such, because we typically need to hold those in addition to our normal meetings. They're, depending on how many interviews we have, they can be challenging to hold during our normal meetings. So I will be discussing with you the calendar at our next meeting, which lucky for us is soon. I'm just gonna look at the posting date. I think it got posted last Friday. Let's see. Yeah, so, or no, it got posted on last Wednesday. So it has been posted for just under a week now, and we have to leave it up for 2 weeks. So we can look at the agendas next week. And I will reach out this week to folks who had submitted a CAF in the past 2 years to get them, because we can't use their old CAF. We have to have them submit a new one now that the vacancy is posted for both committees. Any questions about that? Okay. So we've got an hour and a half left. Let's spend a little bit of time on interview questions, maybe, if that sounds okay with folks. And then we will go on to the AHRA successor body. So let's start with charter review, because that's up on my computer and I don't have to dig for it. And let's discuss this. So these are the interview questions that we used last time. And we had broken them down into different areas, right? So yeah, this was the breakdown. We, just for context, we only asked 6 questions because we were filling the entire committee. So we had, I think, like 18 or so interviews to conduct, and that took a lot of time. I would encourage us to not wildly differ our questions. I think we can improve on them as needed, but I don't want us to have an entirely new standard and set of questions for the committee drastically, right? And again, that's my thought, but if folks have their own thoughts, I always am happy to course correct myself. So I'll give you a minute to read these through and we will discuss. Okay, we good? All right. Sorry, my partner was walking outside and someone beeped at her and I was like, who is that? But I think I knew who it was. All right. Are we ready? Okay. Got 6 questions here. I'm going to go through them point by point and we'll see at the end if there's something you want to add in, but let's start with our existing questions. So question 1, what's your understanding of the role of the Charter Review Committee? Are there particular areas that you see as strengths, weaknesses, or missing elements to the charter? Comments on this question? Lynn?
I wonder if we should ask if they have been watching charter committee meetings.
Do you want to replace this part?
No, definitely not. I would just say, after the first question, have you been able to observe any of the charter meetings? And then go into the next question. That's all.
I do struggle. I feel like I'm always a broken record on like multiple things in one thing, whether it's the goals or this, but I do get nervous having 3 questions in one question. And so I would propose if we add that part in, I would propose making this a second question and breaking it out because I think it's different. Counselor Ete.
Yeah, I think this is one case where we can break it and it won't matter so much because the question of are you watching is more or less a yes or no question.
Yeah. And I think it goes with this first one in a way, but this feels separate to me. This feels like it's asking something different. Okay. Um, Prior experience. Based on the selection guidance, what experiences or skills do you feel you bring to the charter review committee that can make it successful? I might just shift this because it's already started to that will aid in its work or something like that. But this is now picky and doesn't matter. Yeah, Counselor Ate.
I think what the question is getting at is how your skills would complement the work of the committee.
Mm.
And I think that also relates to the previous question because if you have watched and you see some of the questions that are asked or the proceedings, there are things that you can speak about to answer this question.
Are we holding it that it should be a
No.
expectation? Okay. So does this work then? That will support the work of the, okay. How do you stay informed and up to date about town affairs? I think what this question was getting at was like, how have they engaged with the charter, right? Like, how has the charter impacted them? Work style. Tell us about an experience you have had collaborating with a group. What did you like about it? What did you find challenging? This is one that I think we should shift. This next one. Initially, it was please briefly describe 2 or 3 activities that should be part of the work plan for the group. I think we could shift this to say, what are two, honestly, kind of just make it less jargony. Like, what are 2 to 3 things you believe the Charter Review Committee should do if they aren't already doing in the coming year? Or something like that. Like, we also aren't necessarily looking, like, the Charter Review Committee has now asked for money for a consultant. Like, they have a pathway that they're going down. And so I don't know what the purpose is not that I don't think this is a good question, but the path has kind of been a lot more defined for where the Charter Review Committee is going. So I'm not sure what we learn from this that we don't already know from question 3. And again, like I'm happy to be wrong here, but based on my own viewings of the committee, it seems like they've settled out. I don't know what we are learning from this that's going to help us. So I would be fine deleting it. Counselor Ate?
I think I agree. So briefly describe 2 or 3 activities that should be part of the work plan. There's already a process going on, and if there are things that need to be improved upon, that would have been discussed with question 2, I think.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. What else would you like us to know about you that makes you a strong candidate for the Charter Review Committee? I will always fight for this type of question to be in there. I think that it's important to give people an opportunity. I know that it's not specific, but we create boundaries with the prior 5 questions. And if someone has something to share with us, again, that we hadn't thought of, I want to give them that opportunity. I personally like the question more of like, what do you wish we'd asked you that we didn't, and what's your answer to it? But that's getting a little fluffier than maybe some people like to go. So, Counselor Lord?
I'm sorry, I couldn't find the mute button. Thank you. I'm in agreement in terms of having that more open-ended question. And I just had a quick question about, do the applicants get these questions ahead of time,
Yes,
or are
they
they
do.
coming in? Okay, thank you.
They
I
get the
should have known
questions.
that.
No, it's okay. They get the questions and the selection guidance ahead of time.
So it's a great
Yep.
accommodation for, all right, thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it helps us when we're asking for, I think we took out the 2 to 3 question, but in the past, if we have a specific number of examples we want, they've known in advance that we expect multiples. So, here's a question. We are only interviewing for 1 spot. So the part of the process for us is determining a sufficiency of the applicant pool. So far we have 0 CAFs that have come in since this has been posted. I think we had 1 that came in prior to it being posted. That person will have to resubmit it. But we will at some point need to determine how many people, and it's not just number, right? It's like how many, but also when we look at all of those things in our selection guidance, constitutes a robust pool. I'm going to make the wild assumption that we are no longer looking for 18 people like we were the first time, right? Because that is going to be really hard. Since we're only filling 1 spot, we will hypothetically have fewer interviews to give. Should we give them more than 2 minutes or not? 2 minutes is also a decent amount of time, but it's not that long. I would be in favor of bumping this to 3. I know that sounds wild, but public comment is 3. I've tried to give public comment in 2, and it's really hard. So sometimes I think if we're asking for examples, if we're asking for things like that, we should give them a little more time. Is anyone opposed to changing the 2 minutes to 3 minutes? Okay, done. The rest of this has been, I think this apparently is standard practice. I have no feelings about this, but I think the thought was it gets confusing to kind of keep bouncing around questions, so it's fine to just have one person ask them. And then I had a question about this one. I wanted to check this prior. Does somebody have our multiple member body appointments policy up? Because I read in one instance, I'm going to stop sharing for 1 second, sorry. I want to just make sure that we are allowed to do individual interviews, and that it's not in violation of our multiple. Yeah, I know, Lynn, I had the same thought, but hang on. So my concern is that if it says somewhere, yeah, so this is an old document, so I want to find does anybody have the most up-to-date version of the policy on appointments to multiple member bodies? Oh, is it in the packet? Did I put it in the packet the last meeting? Like a smarty? No. Yes, I did. Okay. Amazing news. All right. So the policy for making recommendations to multiple member bodies talks about the interviews. And it says that interviews shall be conducted in a group setting, is the version that the last version that I have seen, which was updated. When was this updated? Doesn't have a date on it. That's why this is my frustration with navigating our websites. It looks like 2021. So I'm trying to figure out if this has since been updated and if we are permitted to do individual interviews or if it has to be a group interview. So I can try to track this down. I don't know we don't have to approve these today. This is because we're not doing the interviews right away. So I would recommend the committee wait until I can get clarity on this point. If folks are okay with that, I would strongly encourage us to try to do individual interviews versus group interviews. I have a strong bias against group interviews. I think that they're unhelpful and allow too much confirmation bias or comparison bias to come in the moment. So that would be my thought. But what do people think? Do you want to just get this done today, or do you want to get some clarity? Counselor Ate?
Where would you get the clarity from? So
I would ask Athena if there's a most recent up-to-date version of this that I am somehow missing, and if it's been changed. And if not, were we breaking the rules last time? Does that make sense?
It-
It's possible I missed it and I have not had time to dig in and look further, but that is the most recent copy of the policy that I found. Lynn, do you know of another? Yeah, okay. And when they do planning board and zoning board interviews, they do them in a group interview, to your knowledge. Oh, Counselor Arte, you're on CRC.
I was on CRC and
You
it
were on
was in a
CRC.
group.
Yeah,
I'm struggling to broach this, but what if it turns out that it should be in a group setting? What does that do?
we have to do it in a group setting. Or we as GOL propose a change to the town council policy, which is we are the appropriate committee to do that. That would have to happen first before we approve the interview questions. And it would have to be approved by the council. Obviously, it's not just a GOL policy. But we can't pitch that today because it wasn't on our agenda. I would encourage folks, I think if it's something this committee thinks we should do, I will confirm that this is the most up-to-date thing. And if so, then we as a committee one of us can make that motion as a counselor to, this is wild. We'd make the motion to the council would refer it back to this committee would discuss it and then refer it back to the council. Which is completely logical and I see no flaws whatsoever. Okay. So just to confirm our plan of attack here, I am going to confirm and I'm writing it down. I'm going to confirm the council policy on appointments to multiple member bodies includes that it must be a group interview. If so, GOL will, or I can just do it. Anna to propose change to the council for referral GOL. All right, does that make sense? So I'm going to confirm that this is true. If it is true, I'll write a memo to you, Lynn. So weird. This committee makeup happens to make this discussion so insular. If it is that way in the policy, I'll write a memo to Lynn and Athena asking for that to be changed. It will be discussed at the council meeting and referred hypothetically to GOL, who will discuss it. And once that goes forward, we can vote those interview questions. We're not as time pressured on the interview questions because we, again, do not currently have any applicants for this. And until we have a sufficient pool, that's that. The selection guidance was kind of the first step, so I'm happy we took that. Any other questions on this? I know that was a bit confusing. Okay, let's do FinCom really quickly. Let me find that. Sorry, I'm looking and I'm realizing I think I have the wrong version. Oh, here it is. Okay. share this. One time I was leading a workshop and I went to share and I accidentally ended the meeting and now I have fears. Okay. These were the interview questions we used last time, last year when we look ahead of schedule, but we're not going to do these today because same issue. I'm going to give you a moment to read. There are 8 questions. All right. We ready to start quick talking through it? Okay. So just gonna make sure that I've saved this in the right date. Okay. Based on the selection guidance, what do you feel you bring to the finance committee that can make it successful? Please include any experience you have with finance in general or the town's finance committee. Okay. What is your understanding of the role of the finance committee? What is your understanding of your role as a non-voting member? I'm curious what the intent, what do we hear from responses to this question that helps us and how? Councilor Ate? Oh, you're muted. Don't worry, you'll repeat the genius, I'm sure.
Before answering that, I was wondering, since this is an interview for a potential role, what's your understanding of your role or of the role of a non-voting member? And I think the last time that we talked about this, I think the sense we got was non-voting members have a different perspective that they can bring that is broader than those who have been elected. That, if I remember, part of the conversation we had last time.
Okay. Any other thoughts on this question? I think what I'm curious about is like, are we looking for them to say, I know that I am supporting or not supporting and that I'm not a voting member? Like, are we just looking for confirmation that they understand it? Or like Councilor Ate, I think what you were saying is we're looking for someone who's bringing to this a lack of maybe like the pressure of holding elected office or like their own experiences. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm not fully understanding what you're saying. Could you clarify? Go ahead.
I hesitate to say more because that would be answering a question that they should answer. So either of those would be appropriate. The question as framed is simply saying from the perspective of whoever is being interviewed, is there a difference between a non-voting member and a voting member? And whatever that understanding is plays into what we think, how capable they would be in that role.
Okay, so we're looking for someone who can talk through that nuance. I don't feel like I'm giving away an answer here, right? Because I do think that we're still going to get unique perspectives. I think for me, it's we need to know that that we're gaining good information from the responses to those questions. And that's not to say maybe I'm framing this wrong as like, I don't mean to say that there's a right or wrong answer. I mean to say like, are we going to get information from this that would help us make the decision? And so for me, in responding to this question, am I going to get a piece of information that tells me this person is more or less, I don't know if the word qualified is right, but would be more or less of a good fit for that spot. And I'm not convinced yet. I'm okay keeping it in there, but it feels to me like it's almost a yes or no. Or like it's a one sentence answer. And I don't know if it's helping me to make the decision, which is why there are 8 questions, so it doesn't need to be the only one. But I just want to make sure every question here is giving us helpful information, if that makes sense. And if for you it is, that's fine. And I'm happy to leave it. So am I correct in saying you feel that you would get helpful information from question 3? Go ahead.
I was waiting on Lynn to say something or Councillor Lord, but I would say that during the last interviews, there were some responses that even for me expanded my knowledge of
Okay.
what was happening on finance between those who are non-voting members.
Okay, perfect. I'm happy to accept that. Okay, tell us about an experience you've had collaborating with a group, particularly where opinions were in conflict or the decision was controversial. I think I just want to add on to this, like, how did you engage in that moment? Like, I think this is what we're looking for is someone who was able to continue to move through conflict, right? Sorry, I'm trying to move back to how we framed this in the last set of, here we go. So in the charter review, we said, tell us about an experience you've had collaborating with a group. What did you like about it? What did you find challenging? And so I'm curious, like, there isn't necessarily that follow-up on this one. We just say, tell us about an experience you've had collaborating in a group, particularly where opinions were in conflict or the decision was controversial. And I kind of want to add, like, how did you engage to move through that conflict? Or how did you engage to move toward, I don't know, like, I need a second, I need an actual question that tells me something about them and prompts them to talk to me about it. How did you engage with the group in that scenario? Because it's not like we're not going to get consensus. I'm not suggesting that, but I think what I'm seeking from this question is how do you navigate these kind of challenging conversations? How do you balance the needs? How do you, share your perspective and respect the perspective of others? That kind of stuff. How do you engage? Are we okay if I add that to this? Okay. Please describe the considerations and objectives you'll use for considering, there's too many words considering in this, financial matters and the budget when making recommendations to the council. So other than changing one of the words, sorry, the tag on my clothes was itching me. Other than changing one of the considerations to a different word, that I don't know yet, but I'll think on. Can I just say, please share what you will bear in mind, or please share. And I also am not clear that this is as helpful in this sentence as it could be, because it's not these individuals who are making recommendations to the council. It's the body. And so I think we could say when discussing recommendations to the council, that might be a better word here, or when the finance committee is making recommendations to the council? Keep both considering Zen, because I don't know a better word right now. And I don't have Google's free. I'll Google it. Okay. Uh, okay, we could say when deliberating on or reviewing. How about reviewing? Somebody say something.
Reviewing is fine. That's part of what is done on finance.
Am I the only one that's annoyed by this? So everyone else is like, just Anna, just tie yourself out here. I'm the only one that's annoyed by the double consider. Counselor Arte, I thought you'd be like with me on this one.
I am, but I wanted you to exert yourself. So
Don't worry, plenty of energy to get through the rest of this. All right. What is your approach to incorporating public input into your decision making? Okay. What else would you like us to know that makes you a strong candidate? And then we just have this random yes or no at the end. If there's a way that we could put this in the statement of interest, this is such an awkward end to these interviews. I was reflecting on that from last time. It's like we get these like final thoughts that are often really good and really interesting and like meaty and make me think. And then we have the like, are you free from now till July? Question. And it's really feels like a move. I don't know if we're allowed to do that or not, but we put this pretty clearly in the requirements, and we don't even state exactly when the meetings are. So I don't see how this is actually a helpful question at this point. So my controversial take is I think we should take this out. We also don't kick them off if they don't. There is a provision for us to do that, but we I don't know. Would people be upset if we took this one out? I want to end with the passionate question. Okay. So these interview questions are actually in line with the policy. I hate it, but it is in line with the policy. The random order feels like it's just impossible to do. But again, we don't need to vote this tonight. We can wait, and I can try to sort out the other issue unless people feel like they really would like to do this tonight. No? Okay. Good discussion, everybody. I'm going to, Counselor Arte, go ahead.
I was wondering, from last year's interview, it seemed they were all done at the same time.
That's what it does seem like based on
Yeah.
that discussion.
Because
I can't remember.
I'm looking through on June 13th, 2024, and you had Tom Porter, Bernie Kubiak, Rizwan
Uh-huh.
and Stephen Casey. So it was all at the same time.
Yeah, I think the charter was the only one we did separate. And yeah, for better or for worse. If we want to do it again that way again, like if it's not a fight worth fighting, it's not a fight worth fighting. I also think with charter, it was so unwieldy because there were so many, right? Like we're typically looking at replacing spots, and so it's 3 people or 4 people or whatever, versus we logistically could not have done 18 people. So yeah, that's that. Okay. Are we ready to move on to our next item of business here? So I'm not seeing any objections. So we will bring those interview questions back in our next meeting. Let's talk through the reparations committee charge, reparations successor body charge. I want to give some context here, and I know that this is familiar context, but just in case, and I say it's familiar context because, again, 2 of you were with me when it happened, so also correct me if I get this wrong. GOL got this referred to them 3 GOLs ago, or two or three GOLs ago. Before I was on the committee, it was referred as part of the discussion of the final report from the African Heritage Reparation Assembly. And this specific part of the report was that there should be a successor body, a body to kind of continue on specific elements of the work of the AHRA. There was a draft charge included in the report, in the final report, and that was what was referred to GOL for discussion. It was carried over into GOL last year, where we discussed it and voted a draft to recommend to the council for adoption and moving forward to create it. Where there were a couple communications breakdowns. In that first GOL, there had been a lot of counselor feedback. That counselor feedback was not, it got lost in the ether between GOLs. So we hadn't been able to take it into consideration when we were discussing this charge. So when the charge went to the full council, there was a bit of, I think, feeling of, why like I put all this time into looking at this, why didn't you discuss my thoughts from counselors, which is fair. And also there were significant proposed edits made by counselors. And so I'm looking to Counselor Griesmer and Ete to correct me if I'm misremembering this. I believe that what happened is that there was an amended version brought forward at council. It was never voted on. It was just immediately referred back to GOL for discussion. So what you had in your packet was the charge that GOL brought to the council. And that had one little track change in it. And then there was a marked up version that was the charge. So both of these have been referred back, right? Like there is not, we're not just discussing one or the other. Basically, what we are going to look at is, I think we should look at the marked up charge and discuss whether or not we, as a committee, would like to agree with those proposed changes and refer it back to the council for adoption. We also have a number of comments from counselors that I included in your packet that we should be kind of bearing in mind as we're going through this. Does anyone have any questions about what we're doing here? Does anyone have any thoughts on how to do this? Okay. So did folks have a chance to read the comments through? If not, I can put them up on the board and we can kind of just talk through it. Would that be helpful? Okay, I'll do that. So my plan tonight is, let's start with the comments. My plan, okay, let me back up. This is a bear, right? Like this is a lot of stuff to try to manage at once. So my current plan of attack here is, let's familiarize ourselves with the comments that folks made, which tend to be a bit bigger picture. And then we're going to start looking at, tonight we're really just trying to familiarize ourselves and get oriented. In the next couple meetings, we'll go through and discuss each of the proposed changes, as well as any changes that are in the counselor comments but not reflected in the document yet, and see where we want to go with each area. Does that make sense? So I'm not necessarily expecting a lot of action on this tonight. I just want us to get our heads around it. If you feel like your head is already around this and I need to catch up, and if everyone feels that way, I will happily catch up. And we can go ahead at everybody else's speed. I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information that we have. I will say that. Okay, So these were a couple different memos. I just smushed it all into a document. This is in your packet. Um, so starting off, let's start off with the ones from Kathy. So, oh, sorry. I'll wait. I'll stop talking. I believe that this was sent prior to, yeah, this was sent prior to the draft that GOL did last year going forward. So these were initial thoughts. And I think some of this was addressed in the initial charge and some may not have been addressed. So just for context, this was kind of like early draft. This was not in response to. I'm gonna keep going. She was saying set it. So, sorry, I'm gonna talk and you can just mute your computer if I'm bugging you. Kathy's comments seemed to be things that GOL did discuss last year when we crafted the charge. So this was saying we haven't talked about what process would be followed for distribution and that process would need to be approved by the council, both of which we discussed, I believe, when we crafted the charge. She also suggested creating a process that's similar to what's done by CPA. So having a clear set of written guidelines, legal guidance, a period for proposals, an annual budget, a voting process, and then council authorization. We also looked at CPA when we were crafting that committee charge. I believe that that is where we tried to model this off of. I don't know if it's exactly what Kathy is saying here to do the comparison, but we talked a lot about how CPA functions when we were discussing the draft charge. So a couple of her comments here around when she says the charge, she's referring to the one that was initially made in the final report, drafted in the final report. So we cannot, we've gotten clarity on this, I believe, from our legal team that we cannot specify race of committee members in a committee charge. And we did not have a specific student slot. And then, sorry, I'm trying to pull up everything at once. Okay. She had suggestions on the mission. I'm going a bit quickly because I think this is captured in the marked up version. And I am assuming that the elements that she wanted in the charge are also marked in that marked up version. So this was Kathy's initial memo to us. We okay if I move on? And then yeah. Andy. So this was also prior to, yeah, this was also prior to our draft going, our GOL's draft going back. Okay. Yep. Okay. So we dealt with this already. This was saying you can't specify race as a qualifier for committee membership. That's correct. We cannot. Okay. From Haneke. Okay. So she provided some specific recommendations, which we can adjust as we get in. But then I think that this was the biggest general question that she had, was that the AHRA report included a lot of recommendations, some of which are more feasible than others. This was something that we talked a lot about, that the council shouldn't necessarily just blanket adopt all of those recommendations. There are some that aren't feasible. Like redefining CPA legislation is not something that we have control over, I think was one example. I'm trying to remember specifics. So I think this is something we want to make sure we discuss, is how do we clarify that each recommendation is still an individual kind of council decision, that we're not, as a slate, adopting all of those recommendations. Okay. That was it for comments. Any questions on the counselor? Any questions about the questions before we kind of look at the memo here? Okay. I'm going to try to do 8 things at once. I'm going to pull everything up. Let's take a look. Let's take a second and familiarize ourselves with what GOL voted last time before we get into the marked up version, because it's so marked up that it's actually kind of hard to read it. So this was what GOL voted to send to the council. We had it as 5 voting members. Purpose: in light of the town council's longstanding goal of advancing racial equity and social justice and continued commitment to dismantle structural racism in Amherst, ABRC's mission is to carry forward the work of the AHRA guided by the recommendations in the AHRA final report. That's the overarching purpose. The charge, the items they're supposed to do: the ABRC shall review the recommendations in the AHRA final report, establish, and I think we were talking about this in chronological order for the most part here, at least this first piece. Establish feasibility and priority level of AHRA recommendations, provide recommendations for action to the town council based on priority level and feasibility, advise and make written recommendations to the town council on the expenditure of funds from the town's reparations fund, consult regularly with the Black community about the allocation of reparations funds and other proposals under consideration by the committee involving reparative justice, accept proposals from the community through a process determined by this body, collaborate with town committees to pursue reparative projects and initiatives where shared goals are present. So you can see in this, and then they have to do reports, which I'll get to in a second, but you can see in this that some of the questions that were raised in those counselor questions were addressed in this initial charge, right? So things like concern about liaisons from other committees. We talked about saying that they should collaborate with them where shared goals are present, instead of kind of limiting it to one committee or another. And we always are saying provide recommendations for action, which is just similar to CPA, right? Like they recommend projects, but ultimately, because we are the legislative body of the town and are managing the budget, we are the ones who vote to authorize and approve at the end of the day. And we modeled this off of CPA. So advise and make written recommendations to the town council on expenditure of funds. We're basically saying create that process where you recommend it. And that this body, one of the things that we talked about being really important was that this body should be not just kind of making those decisions in a vacuum. They should be consulting with the Black community about the allocation of reparations funds and other proposals under consideration by the committee. Oh my God. So this was where we were getting at, like they have to seek out proposals. It's not this committee kind of determining we want to chase this project or this project. We wanted that similar to CPA, that process where folks submit proposals. Thoughts on this before we get into the marked up version? Again, we're just familiarizing ourselves tonight. I don't know about y'all, but it's been a long week. It's Tuesday. Just kidding. It's been a long 2 days. Okay, are we at no questions on this? I almost am like scared to share this next one with you. Okay. Well, I know you saw it because it's in the packet. All right, here we go. So, this was the version that was marked up. I think at least one, if not two counselors, I think took a go at marking it up, taking in their thoughts about it, and this was sent back to GOL for discussion. So notably, they took the word black out of the title, and I think that's something we should discuss. This is not, to me, never mind. I'm just saying we should we'll discuss all of it. And they upped it to 7 voting members, and they brought back the membership from specific bodies. Again, I want to be really clear. GOL may decide to go back to what we had before, and that is well within our prerogative to do. We had discussion on this, and so I can remind us of that discussion. But just because I just want to empower GOL a little bit here, just because one or two or multiple counselors said they wanted to see it another way, does not mean that GOL can't say this is what we are recommending. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the council votes this charge. GOL makes a recommendation. And so if we want to go to our initial recommendation of 5 voting members, just standard, versus specifying out, we can. And I will do my best to make sure. What I'll probably do is find the meetings where we discuss this, and you can recap them in the minutes or by watching them, so that we don't have the same discussion 18,000 times. Okay. Adjustment of the purpose here. Their proposed purpose with a changed name is the ARC's mission is to implement reparations as defined by international human rights standards in Amherst for harms caused by support of slavery and post-Reconstruction discrimination by the town, residents, businesses, and other Amherst-associated entities. As part of its mission, ARC will make recommendations to the town council on expenditures of the Reparations Stabilization Fund to support reparations, including consideration of areas recommended by the African Heritage Reparations Assembly AHRA report. Okay. And then this shifts to the charge. So priority areas, starting with regarding the scope of reparations. So they talked about, okay, reviewing the recommendations of the final report, they kept that in, and they moved up the consultation. So they shifted it a bit. So we had consult regularly with the Black community. They had shifted it to consult regularly with the descendants of enslaved Amherst residents and residents of Amherst whose ancestors were enslaved in the United States regarding Amherst reparations program to inform the program and recommendations made to the council. And they refer back to different eligibility groups from the AHRA final report. And they specified, make recommendations to the council on 3 to 5 priority areas for potential support from the Reparations Stabilization Fund, talking about considering scope of harms to be repaired and addressed, establishing, and then they kind of expanded, right? Establishing feasibility, legality, and connection to harms being repaired. Consider the final report funding priorities, including youth programming, affordable housing, business grants, and entrepreneurial training, and then present those to the council for action. So this was their, like, basically they tried to chunk it out into starting with identifying scope and then getting into funding. Regarding recommendations on the expenditure of that stabilization fund based on town council priority areas, they shall review and consider guidelines and processes followed by the CPA. Adopt a clear set of written guidelines, including priority areas and fund and eligibility. Establish a process for receiving proposals and making recommendations, solicit proposals, make recommendations, etc. And then shortened the reports. So there's lots for us to discuss, clearly. But I wanted to just kind of give us an opportunity to sit with that together. We're not even going to jump into it today because I think we want a big chunk of time and we are not going to get where we need to go in a half an hour. What I would like to talk about, I want to just kind of open it up for general thoughts now, but what I think would be helpful for us to do, I'd like folks to look at those edits, those track changes, and go through and kind of start to form your own opinions on whether or not you agree or disagree with the shifts as proposed. And basically, I'm saying let's try to really come prepared with where we are at with each point, with each edit that's made in that document to make our meeting a bit more manageable when we get into that piece by piece of it. But let's start with general thoughts and thoughts on that approach of we're going to go piece by piece through it, but I'd like you to come prepped with your own kind of either marked up, you don't have to send it to me, but come with your own further markups or proposed changes, or whether or not you personally agree or disagree, knowing that through discussion, we all may shift where we're at. I just monologued. Somebody say something. What are we thinking? Nobody's thinking anything. Okay. I'm going to ask you all to do that then. That's unless I hear otherwise, that will be the route that we go. So when we next meet, which is next week, right? Yeah, so you've got 1 week, you've got that marked up version. I would like you to please review it and go through and say, you know, I agree with this point, I disagree with this. Notice, I'm not coming at this with an angle, but notice what things were removed from our initial draft charge. And then please reach out to, if you, I guess this is really Hala for you, because Pat, Counselor Ete, and Lynn were all on GOL last year. If you want recaps of our conversations, please reach out to myself and whoever to try to get an idea on that recap of the conversation. And I will try to figure out what meetings those were at if you want minutes or recordings. But really, I think the best plan of approach here is let's just talk through it point by point and see where we get to with that charge. Does that sound okay? Okay. Thank you. We will get it done. Yeah. Counselor Ete?
So I've been silent. It's not because there isn't anything to say, but it's merely because I'm reminding myself of the discussions that we had, which were
Yeah.
tedious and kind of long. And so it would be necessary to revisit that so that we don't retread what we've done before, or even if we do, that we come at it from a different angle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you
So
what do you think the best method for revisiting those is going to be? Like, is it just, do you think would it be helpful for me to try to figure out the dates of those meetings and let folks know if they want to watch them? Or
yeah.
at least, I don't know if how helpful the minutes are going to be in that versus a recording, to be honest with you. As painful as watching ourselves on a recording is going to be, it may be the best way to recap. Would it be helpful for me to get the dates of those?
I think the dates would be good. I
Okay.
am looking over at my notes and I know we had something in September.
Mm-hmm. That's helpful. That's really helpful. That gives me a starting point. Okay. Fire.
September 26th.
Okay. Send dates to recordings. Okay, I will try to get the dates out for folks to, if you want to recap. Yeah, Counselor Ate, I think that's my fear too, is that we're going to be deja vu all over again and having the same discussions and this was a lot. I mean, I also don't want to minimize the work that GOL put into this last year. This was a lot of intense discussion. And yeah, so I think that I don't want to rehash every single discussion we had. Unless we need to, right? Like unless there's a purpose to doing that. And obviously this is a different committee than last year, and obviously, you know, everything shifts. So I'm not saying we can't bring it up again, just to be clear. All right, so I'm going to find the dates and send them to you. I'm also going to try to navigate the question that we had earlier about the policy, but I don't think that we have a half an hour. If folks would like to, we can start in on this, but I guess I'm speaking for myself. I don't think it's necessarily going to be helpful for us to jump into it tonight. I don't know that I'm ready to jump into it tonight without kind of rehashing those or revisiting the prior discussions. But do folks want to jump in on and start in on this or no? No, I'm seeing no's. Okay. We're gonna pause there then, and we will jump back in on this next week. We did not, this is my fault. I am co-sponsoring this resolution with George, and he sent me edits, and I forgot that he'd sent me edits. So we do not have the whatchamacallit proclamation that I had put on the agenda. I did put pending receipt and referral, but because I didn't get my edits done, it was not received nor referred. So we'll have that next time. Thank you. And other upcoming agenda items, prepare yourselves for town councilor evaluation discussions. Those will be happening soon. We will be talking through the process for doing this once I can get my head straight about it. And looking at, we did a lot of work shifting the goals. Now we need to shift the evaluation to match the good goals that we got done. Make sure that we're evaluating them effectively. We will have certainly have some upcoming proclamations and resolutions, and with the legislative process guide is also on our plates. And then terrifying as it is, as soon as we're done with that evaluation, we jump right into goals. Anything else that folks think is coming up on agendas that I didn't say? And I don't have my list in front of me. That was just the top of my head. Okay. We are meeting next week, and we will be continuing our AHRA discussion, as well as possibly those interview questions. And depending on how many CAFs we have, we'll start talking about applicant pool and all of that. Until we determine the applicant pool sufficient, it's a bit tough to give you a calendar for interviews and the like, but just if you don't mind, keep bringing your calendars to GOL to be prepared if it happens. Okay. Is there a motion to, is there anything else that folks, I had no unanticipated business. All right. Sorry, I feel like I'm like thrown off today because we didn't fully dive into the things that I was hoping we'd fully dive into, but I also don't think it was necessarily possible for us to do that. Is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I move we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna take the vote, and Councillor Lord,
Aye.
Lynn,
Aye.
Councillor Ette,
Aye.
and I am an aye as well when absent. So thank you all very, very much. Please feel free to reach out to me about questions with these agenda items and how we're, especially the AHRA successor body charge. I'm here to kind of talk you through it if you need help, as much as I can. So thank you all. Have a lovely rest of your day. We are adjourned at 8:00 p.m. Thank you.
Good
Bye.
night.